Hello, my name is Alessio Jones, and I am in your Philosophy 123 class. This is the self-reflection of the religious autobiography. Alright, so let's start. Religious upbringing. Alright, so throughout my whole life, so I was only raised really by my mom because my dad and her got a divorce when I was really young, and so she just raised me with my sister. And my mom, she was raised like devout Catholic growing up, like as a kid. Her parents were very Catholic. She went to Catholic school mostly her whole life, but then she like had a really tough, terrible time with it and stuff due to like physical abuse from like nuns and stuff, and just like she always just inherently just questioned a lot of the teachings and stuff there, and it's kind of looked down upon, definitely, and she never really liked it. So her motto for having kids, or not her motto, but her attitude towards religious upbringing, she didn't impose any religious tenets or doctrines or dogma or whatsoever onto us at all, because she wanted us to just have our own decision. She thought that we were very capable of making our own decision as we got older, and I thought she was totally correct. And so then that transcribes onto me. Me growing up, I never was so like confirmed in what I believed. I always kind of like thought about Christianity, just kind of when I was really young, just kind of like, oh yeah, because most of the people around me, that's what they believe. So I'm really young. I couldn't really think that abstractly yet. But as I got older and the level of abstraction that I could just think of increased, it was so easy that by the time I was, I don't know, maybe around 14 or 15, I just completely rejected any religious dogma whatsoever for a lot of reasons. I've done a lot of research. I'm pretty passionate about the entire subject as well, which is why I'm taking this class. And so, for example, it changed when I was 14 or 15, probably when I started really getting into I actually got pretty interested in hallucinogenic drugs, not to do them, but just interested in the education about them, and how they basically have a tremendous influence on your reality, and that just chemicals in your body have a tremendous influence on your reality. Which brings me to the point of empirical evidence, which for religion there is no empirical evidence to support anything really that they perpetuate at all whatsoever. And so because of the science person that I am, and I feel that I kind of feel, in my opinion, that's just how most of today should be viewed from a science standpoint, to promote the development of our entire species is through science and technology, and that's I have a very firm belief in that. We can see that all the way from the Enlightenment to periods today. This whole technological movement is just insane, and it's it's not possible without proper science education. And my problem with religion, I don't have a problem with religion, but I do have a problem when it impedes the progress of humanity, whether on a macroscopic or even a microscopic level. So what I mean by that is, when people, decide that, hey, I'm just not going to believe in evolution, or I'm just not going to, I'm just going to believe the Bible word for word. That's when I have a problem, is because they're basically ignoring proven concepts of reality, and they're using the Bible to basically fit their own agenda, and it's impeding, in terms of science progress, it's definitely impeding that, because they're not learning the actual truth. And then it's even obscuring their conception of what a fact and empirical evidence really is, so that could really hinder them later in life when they have to decide between, whether we derived similarly from we have the same ancestral upbringing as chimps, or we were just put on here just from some intelligent designer. So I don't believe in a God. I would classify myself as agnostic, however. only because I would see it when I believe it. I need the evidence, and there's just no evidence. And, personally, I think that in this universe, in the pale blue dot of a planet that we just reside on, as basically the size of a very small dust particle in space, I just think, as human beings, this is one of my thought process on religion and why it's so skewed and why I think people just shouldn't, I think people are almost somewhat foolish in believing. So we are human beings. We are animals, just like any other animal on the planet. We happen to be the smartest animal, okay? We have quirks and nuances just like every other animal. Because we are like every other animal, we've evolved on Earth, just like every other animal, to only know things on Earth. Which is why, we evolve intuitively to think about certain things. We evolve in a certain way to think about certain things intuitively. Humans, for example, can think of things, we intuitively think of things linearly and not exponentially. We evolve to basically think when we throw something up in the air, it's going to fall down. Things like that. And so as human beings, I feel that because of almost that inherent bias we have as a human species, just not a bias, but just the notion that we are, we're the outcome of chance. And so why should we, I feel that because we are an outcome of chance and because we are the human being, because we are the species we are, our intellectual capacities are pretty limited. And the universe is very, very complex, more complex than I think human beings make it out to be. So complex to the fact is that I think everything in the universe is explained. I just don't think that I just don't think our species has the capacity to understand everything that the universe has to offer. It's like how much can you teach a cat? You can only teach a cat so much, but you can't teach it, to do algebra or anything else. It just doesn't harbor those intellectual capacities. And I think it's the same thing for human beings, just on a completely different level, and that the universe is just something that we'll never understand. So for people to not even realize that and to just affirm this arbitrary belief in some supernatural divinity, it kind of just sounds like bullshit to me. They're just completely disregarding the fact that, hey, well, maybe the things that we know about, maybe there are a whole lot of other things that, it's possible to know about. We'll just never get there. You never know. And it's just, I just feel like people don't really adhere to that. And so why can't anything in the universe be explained? I mean, everything, I just don't see why it's not necessary in the grand scheme of science and in the grand scheme of everything that we know. Why can't everything be explained? There has to be a reason. There's physical laws that, provide for a solid foundation for our entire universe, and the same laws exist everywhere else. So physical propagations of different things have to be happening all the time. So it should be somewhat explained. It has to be. I just don't see why it can't be explained if it's a physical construct. That's my main point. And so, also the concept for me of religion, why I'm kind of against it, is that you are putting absolute certainty into something that has no evidence whatsoever. It really is kind of like believing in Santa Claus. There's zero evidence to believe that Santa Claus exists. A lot of people believe in Santa Claus. He has the same, great values that he offers and characteristics, but bottom line is there's no evidence to prove that Santa Claus exists. So why would I put full certainty into something that exists and live my life according to how it's telling me how I should live it? Well, for me, that just it just makes no sense. It just only limits your life, and you're limiting your life on the premise of getting into heaven and not getting into hell when it's probably not even real, because there's no evidence to support that it is real. You're just believing something that it's been tossed down from generation to generation, and was written in a book, thousands of years ago by people who, you know, who knows what their intentions were. So that brings me to the concept of spirituality. Spirituality, I am all for. Religion, I am not. I just don't really see the necessity for humans. I agree that religion can help human beings in certain ways. I find it very interesting that those ways can, you know, be based on things that are false or things that have no evidence. But, you know, overall, it actually does help human beings, which I find interestingly inherent in the human species. I find very interesting. However, spirituality is something that I am for, and I just find you can find spirituality in many different ways that don't have to, you know, ascribe to one book or, you know, one doctrine whatsoever. And I'm not just talking about Christianity, I'm just talking about, you know, religions in general, because most of them are pretty similar. They aim for very similar ideas and goals, and so yeah, spirituality. For me, spirituality, I find spirituality beautiful. In the way that I perceive spirituality, I just perceive it from just an existential point of view. I look up into the stars at night and I gaze and I see remnants of human beings, because we're all once, you know, from stardust essentially, when the earth was forming and all of the chemicals and molecules basically provide the foundation for, you know, a lot of the things here on earth in terms of chemical composition. And I just find, because we are a part of the stars out there, that provides meaning to me that we're part of a greater thing. And isn't that just religion? Is what it's about, is just being a part of a thing greater than you. And like we're a part of the stars out there, the stars are a part of us down here. So in that, I find it very poetic and very very spiritual in that sense too, is we're a part of a greater thing beyond the earth. We're a part of the universe. And in that, I find beauty in.